Hello everyone. It's been a while. I've been at school, kind of busy with things, and the Cleveland Bortle 9 skies are kind of terrible to do astrophotography in. Surprise. Well, today is November 27th, and the last time I used my telescope was just a few days before I left for Case. So I am less than 24 hours away from my first clear night in a long time, and that also coincides with free time because I'm on Thanksgiving break right now. What the tentative plan is right now is to set up right before sunset and do some brighter objects. I'm going to try to go for the Helix Nebula first off and just capture like an hour and a half or hour 45, 2 hours of data on that. And then once Orion gets high enough, I want to shift over and try to capture like the Flame Nebula, the Horsehead Nebula, things like that. I've tried to do the Horsehead and the Flame before, and it has just turned out terribly. I'm not sure what went wrong before. And the last time I tried to shoot the Horsehead and the Flame was almost exactly 1 year ago, now that I think about it. It was right as we got off into winter break. And my image was noisy, and I think the light pollution absolutely destroyed it from my own backyard. So it'll be interesting to do it again with the new cameras that I have and everything that I've learned over the past year in astrophotography. So I'm very excited for that. I'm also excited to just get out of the house and spend a night outside under the stars. It'll be really cool. Very refreshing, I think is the right word. I'm planning on downloading some automated software so that I can, not have to like wake up every 30 or 45 minutes and manually dither my telescope. I don't have to go out and slightly shift the image around to get rid of all the noise artifacts. The software does it for me. It couples with the camera, the mount, and it also couples with the guiding software, and it combines it all together, and you can kind of streamline your night of imaging, and I'm very excited for that. I'm curious to see how that's going to work. If it works well, I hope it cooperates. It's going to be a cold one tomorrow. I haven't looked at the forecast yet. I've been eyeing this clear night now for 5, 6, 7 days now. It is the day of. I never thought I'd live to see the day. For the past 7 days or so, Ohio has been completely plagued with cloudy and rainy skies. But it's time to start pulling everything out into the garage so I can let it cool down. It's about 2 hours or so. Yeah, about 1 hour until sunset. So I'm going to let things kind of cool down in the garage and then slowly haul them out to the field. It'll be just like summer, except I'll be wearing a coat and long pants, and it'll be several tens of degrees cooler, which I'm curious to see how that'll affect the camera. Cooler temperatures are nicer on the sensor. They reduce that thermal noise, especially if you're taking longer exposures. You just sort of accumulate those thermal noise artifacts, but when it's cooler, those don't occur as often, so I look forward to that. So I use Stellarium. It's a free software to sort of plan my nights and get a good sense of like what my images, like the framing, will look like. So this is what it looks like right now. It is almost exactly 4 p.m. Sunset is almost exactly 5 p.m. So you can see the sun there. If we fast forward to when I want to start imaging, so about 6 p.m. Okay, so we're at about 6 o'clock, and I have selected already the Helix Nebula. So I'm going to go into some of my presets here. So I've got my EOS selected. I'm going to change my telescope to my SkyWatcher. So that is about the kind of framing I should expect for tonight. I think that might work really well. Now if we fast forward about 9 o'clock or 2100 hours. Okay, we're just after 9 o'clock. You can see the Helix Nebula is getting really low to the horizon. It's probably picking up lots of city lights, if not trees, house lights, but it's also passing through a whole bunch of the Earth's atmosphere, which is really bad for the seeing quality. So if we turn our attention to the east, you can see there's the beautiful constellation of Orion, it's Betelgeuse, the belt stars. You can kind of see the Orion Nebula in there. So we're going to zoom in and look at the Horsehead and the Flame Nebula, which should be right near this star here. And of course my camera view will be rotated, but that's going to be some nice framing. I'll probably rotate this by about 90 degrees. clockwise and, you know, get the Flame Nebula in the bottom left and the Horsehead in the center, but I think that's going to be a very nice shot for tonight. I'm thrilled to do this after 1 year. Just look at these clear skies. It says 10% cloud coverage, although currently there are 0% clouds in the sky from what I see. Okay, the newest technology addition to my telescope are these wooden pads. My dad cut out their square, I don't know, probably a little over 6 by 6 inches each. That'll just help distribute the weight of the telescope over the ground so it doesn't sink into the dirt as I add stuff on and over the course of the night, especially if there's moisture that kind of soaks into the ground, because that'll potentially throw off the guiding and destroy the imaging. There's the moon starting to rise. It's only a day or two out from being a full moon. I don't anticipate being too much of a problem since the targets tonight are very bright and there's lots of contrast. Aligning things is probably the scariest step for me, because everything starts moving and you always want to double check your cables and make sure that they don't get snagged on like the little clips down at the feet or snagged of your other cables. It's always a little nerve-wracking, and it's always a good idea to keep an eye on what your cables are doing and what they will be doing. So some first impressions of Backyard EOS. Extremely easy to set up, very simple to use. Oops, I'm going the wrong direction there. And it is very helpful for checking alignment and stuff like that. You can kind of see a little star kind of popping in there. Whereas before, a lot of this that I would do would be mostly guesswork, where I would assume that I was zooming into the center of the frame. Yeah, this is insanely helpful. 'Tis the season. Got our Christmas lights and our little floodlights on the trees. Very festive. Okay, I put it on pause just to double check that things are going well. So we come here, you can already see very clearly the Helix Nebula. You can see some of the color too, like the reds on the outside and the lighter bluish colors on the inside. I'm very excited about how this one's going to come out. It took a little bit longer than I expected to set up. It is 7:15 right now. I wanted to get started imaging around 6. I had some setbacks with PhD guiding, but right now I've got the nebula framed up, the Helix Nebula framed up. I can see a lot of red in there just from a basic stretch that I did of one single image in Backyard EOS. I am currently taking a 5-minute test exposure. The framing is good. I just did 4 minutes at ISO 1600 and the image was white basically. And I pulled down some of the highlights, again just from a single shot, and I can see the structure of the nebula, which is kind of cool in itself. But I brought down the ISO to 800 in hopes of not blowing out so much noise and light pollution, and I'm increasing the exposure length, so hopefully I absorb more photons from the nebula but don't wash out the screen. I gotta try to find this ISO exposure balance. So I'll show you the results. I've got about 205 seconds left on this exposure, and let me show you the guiding. I don't want to say anything too crazy because I'll jinx it, but let me show you some of the guiding. So there's just a preview of the kind of washed out one after I brought down the highlights and whatnot. There we go. Now that graph kind of looks like garbage, I know. But here we go. The pixel errors right now are just pretty much half a pixel each in RA and DEC. So I'm very happy for that. Yeah, as you can see, my signal to noise on this thing is kind of awful right now. But I'm not gonna complain because it's working right now. Alright, so it's time to go in, grab something warm to drink maybe, and then head back out and check the exposure. Okay, it's about 1:30 in the morning. It's pretty cold out. Frost has formed on pretty much everything. There's this weird haze in the air, but I think I have finished taking my light frames. I should have framed up the Flame and Horsehead just a little bit better. The Horsehead's kind of near the top half of the image. I wish it was kind of lower so I could capture more of that red nebulosity, but I think it might be okay. We'll see. So yeah, I think overall it's pretty successful. I got a setup to take my lights, flats, and bias frames. So I'm gonna take my lights now and set my darks to take over. I'm probably only gonna take a few darks, and yeah, I think I'll be in by about 3 or so, and then I'll probably try to do quick edits on them tonight just to see what kind of results I can really expect tomorrow. You can see the frost glistening, all the little ice crystals on there. It's kind of pretty. But until next time, I will say that one benefit, got my sled there, one benefit to all this frost and ice forming is that it does make moving the sled very easy, as it's just sliding on the grass. In fact, I'm hardly putting any effort into this, so it's kind of nice. Okay, it's just after 3. I just finished packing everything up. Everything is covered. Everything is covered with frost. So I'm gonna leave it out in the garage overnight to slowly warm up into the morning. Yeah, I might take a look at some of the data tonight.